to meet yourself in 20 years' time.
Good Lord. George. Hello, George. Haven't seen you for years. Whatever happened to you?
I went to sea by the looks of it.
Oh, I don't know. Cuddly. Have a drink.
Half a bitter, please.
Maple, a pint of best and roll that scotch for me.
So much for the tennis. Do I still play?
No. Just about weightlifting.
Oh, I see.
Cigarette? Oh, of course you don't yet. Look, why don't we have a jolly good blowout? I know a place.
I was going to have a quick sandwich.
Oh, don't worry, it's on me. Look, it's only just down the road. Let's get a cab.
Why don't we walk?
What's the matter? It's about indigestion, I think.
Can I do anything?
You certainly can. You can drink just a little less alcohol, eat just a little less food, and do just a little more exercise, and stop smoking.
Healthier eating looks like being a major concern of doctors and nutritionists in the 1980s. In the past, clear and consistent advice on a good diet hasn't been easy to find. The experts have given us advice all right, but often there's been differences of opinion and conflicting evidence, and the various sectors of the food industry have made matters more confused by using some of the bits that they liked and leaving out some of the other bits. But whatever the confusion, many would argue that Britain is lagging behind other countries in giving good nutritional advice on the points that are clear.
A lot of people have learned that meat fat can increase the risk of heart disease, so they're trimming it off. But trimming fat off isn't enough, because half of the fat in red meat is hidden where you can't trim it off. So, to cut down on fat, eat smaller portions.
That's the American approach to the problem, where for some years now they've been hitting hard at the dangers of the diet-related diseases. This series of commercials was made in California at Stanford University's Heart Disease Prevention Program, and they've had a major impact. They've looked at the dangers of too much saturated fat, salt and sugar, but they've done it with humor and without getting bogged down in clinical and statistical details.
Give it a try. Walk to work.
The sandwich. America's favorite lunch.
So why is there nothing like this yet on British TV? Medical opinions on this side of the Atlantic are much the same as those in America. For us, though, health education has always been a much lower priority, and there are plenty of people now who say the government should be very much more concerned with the inadequacies of the British diet.
Healthy eating. Don't add cheese.
Here at the Health Education Council, they've run tough campaigns on alcohol and smoking, but little on food. Yet it was the Health Education Council who finally published a report we've featured throughout this series, the NAFNI report, which gives clear, long-term guidelines for the nation's eating habits. It's called a discussion document, but many people think that there's been enough talking, and what's needed now is action, both by individuals themselves and by the food industry and the government. The NAFNI report recommends that within 15 years the composition of the British diet should be improved in the following ways. Our intake of fat should be cut by 25%, and the proportion of saturated fat found in animal products like milk, butter, cheese and meat should be cut by a half. Sugar consumption should also be cut by 50%, while we should all be eating twice as much fibre, which is found mainly in cereal products like bread, particularly wholemeal. Finally, our intake of salt should be reduced by 25%. The report, however, has yet to be implemented by the government, and its chairman, Philip James, is disappointed by their reaction.
I think that the government is taking a classically British, cautious view of it all, and they are worried about having to do anything which might be seen in hindsight to be wrong. There is always this idea, let's not do anything, because it may in 5-10 years prove to be not quite right. Whereas our view is that, you state what you know at the moment, you tell people that you'll inform them as soon as there's some new, subtle change that might be of importance to them, and that is the honest way of doing it.
As you know, there's a great deal of academic debate about the fine-tuning, if you like, of nutrition. And that's meant that a lot of nutrition programs haven't got off the ground because there's been so much argument about precisely what is the correct message that should be put across. And at some stage we have to bite the bullet and say, well, we're 99.9% certain that this is the correct message.
Mike Dorr believes that health education in this country is seriously underfunded and has yet to face up to the problems of the national diet.
a nasty shock.
But people need exercising just as much as dogs. If you just went for a few good walks, that'd be a start. The chances are you'll actually like it.
On you go. Here out effect.
And once you really get going, your heart, your lungs, your muscles all get stronger. You'll shake off depression. You'll feel a new man.
Hang on.
Or a new woman.
Here. Where you go?
You'll put more effort into everything you do. And get a lot more out of it.
Roger. Come back at once. Come on.
A few minutes exercise every day could add so much to your life. Look after yourself.
In this country, we spend about £12 million on all health education through the Health Education Council and the Scottish Health Education Group. Now, out of that, those two organisations have to deal with every theme under the sun. It's not just advertising, all their administration and production of posters and leaflets and funding of staff and so on. £12 million. As against that, the drinks industry spends £100 million a year on advertising alone, the tobacco industry up to £150 million on advertising and sponsorship. The food industry spends around £300 million on its advertising each year. So to expect health education to achieve miracles on what are minuscule budgets is a mistake. So what we have to ask ourselves is, do we as a country really want better health for the community? If we do that, there is overwhelming evidence from other countries that proper health education could achieve it. But at the moment, our decision seems to be that we rate health education as profoundly unimportant. We're simply not prepared to spend money on it.
How have other countries dealt with the problem?
Well, if you take something like nutrition as a whole, the single issue of nutrition, we as a country compare very badly with other countries. If you compare us with Norway, they have a national nutrition policy. Where's the British national nutrition policy? Other countries have mounted some exciting campaigns which depend, as in Scandinavia, on the government as a whole wanting to take action, rather than just some health departments here or there wanting to take action. If you compare Britain with other countries, you see that in Australia, for instance, they've mounted some dramatic, exciting campaigns which really try to hammer home to people in an original and positive way the message that improving your health can be something pleasant and exciting rather than something negative.
Eat fruit instead of fat. That's how to get it off. Oh, ring for your get it off kid.
That required funding. It required commitment, because of course the food industry didn't like some of the ads that went out, but it brought results. We don't seem to have learned that lesson yet.
How in general would you assess the government's attitude towards health education, given that it does have these various responsibilities and powers over different areas that affect food and health?
I think ambivalent would be the most charitable word to use about it. What the government wants to do with health education is to have a bit of rhetoric, to be able to say that something is being done, but to be fairly certain that that something that's being done won't really have much influence, certainly won't offend anybody. So they put a few £1 million in and they say, that's okay, we're dealing with it. Now let's get on to next business.
But if the government is being at best low-key about nutrition and health education, then there are people who are doing what they can, albeit in small ways, to get NACNI's messages across. In Scotland, which is a black spot in the health statistics, there are NACNI-inspired initiatives being taken in Aberdeen, amongst a group of people where diet-related problems often start, school children.
This is the star rating game, right? You've got to put these cards according to their nutritional value under this star rating, okay?
Dice Academy in Aberdeen has a progressive home economics department where they're teaching children the basic principles of nutrition, with this game, devised by the teachers, formulated along the NACNI recommendations.
Tin spaghetti, I would give that one. Not that good for you. Pasta, I would give it a 3. I say 3 in between, yeah. Jam. Sort of sweet, there's a lot of sugar and preservatives in it and that. Yeah, a 1. Baked beans, 3. You've got good protein in that. No, wouldn't be that good. No. Boiled potatoes. No, they're not good for you because what it takes on. What it takes that stuff. 1 of body. Isn't that really up? Yeah, it's quite good for you. Yes, plus. Packet meals, well, I would say a 1 because I'm not very good at it. Got lots of sugar. I reckon when I came round before that you had another few that were wrong. No? No. Did you not have that brown sugar? Did you not have that in 3? No. No? Tell me. We're trying to eat less sugar, less fat, less sugar, less fat. Chips with chips today? Chips? Yes. Cream cheese, you got that one right, that was good. What's the main nutrient in there? Well, 5 nutrients. Carbohydrate, a lot of energy, but nothing else. Right, good. That's what you have for breakfast every morning, is it? No, apart from the chips. Would you poach your egg tomorrow? Rather than fry it? No? You like fried eggs?
Right, we're all set now to make pineapple upside down cake. Now there's 2 recipes on your sheet here. The bottom one is the one we're going to use. Kevin, what's the alteration between the bottom one and the top one?
In the bottom one we're using whole wheat flour and the top one we're not.
Right, we're using whole wheat instead of all white flour. Now we've used something in the wholemeal form before. Kirsten, what have we used?
Bread.
Bread, yes. When we made Welsh rarebit we used wholemeal bread instead of white bread. Angela, why?
It's better for you.
And why is it better for you? Richard.
Helps your digestive system.
Correct, it helps the digestive system. What is in it that helps the digestive system, David?
It's got fibre in it.
It's fibre in it, yes. And we say that our modern day diet is lacking in fibre. And we want more fibre in the diet to help the digestive system.
The NACNI guidelines are also being followed in the cookery classes. Small adjustments are being made to standard recipes which were primarily devised to develop manual skills rather than nutritional knowledge. Nutrition now plays a bigger part.
A wee bit more, Scott, and a few lumps in there.
And this is the end result. Pineapple upside down cake a la Dice Academy. Looks absolutely great. I wouldn't mind sinking my teeth into it, but I think that cook might be a bit put off if she got it back half eaten. With me today is Gillian Lockie, a lecturer in nutrition at one of the local colleges. And she's been responsible for trying to get some changes into the home economics department here. Gillian, what exactly are you trying to achieve by amending the recipes in the home economics department?
Some of the recipes that are currently used in home economics are rather low in fibre because they don't use wholemeal flour. And some of them have quite a lot of sugar in. So what I did in this particular case was to use wholemeal flour instead of white, and that's increased the fibre content.
Are you trying to develop out of some of the recommendations from the NAPI report?
That's right. In the NAPI report it says we should be eating less sugar and more fibre, and that's an example of a recipe which can be adapted to fit the NAPI recommendations.
But progressive moves in the classroom can be undermined by catering policies in school canteens. So the Dice Academy team are pressing the local education authority catering manager for changes too. And teachers from other schools are getting interested in a set of slides spelling out the amount of fibre in different foods.
There's a tremendous amount of ignorance about the fibre content of foods and which foods give you good amounts of fibre. And so the aim of the slides was to give this information to the teachers who then use the pack, pass it on to the pupils.
The first slide shows the amount of Special K and Rice Krispies and cornflakes that you have to eat in order to get 5 grams of dietary fibre. And as you can see, it's a very large amount of Rice Krispies. This is a slide showing the mueslis. The one on the left is a bran enriched muesli, and because it's got the bran in it, then you don't have to eat nearly as much to get 5 grams of dietary fibre as the one on the right. The one on the right is actually an unsweetened one, and then at the back we've got porridge, which is very frequently eaten up here. This shows the fibre content of different flours. The one on the left is white flour, and the one on the right, whole wheat flour. And again you can see that you've got to eat an awful lot of white flour to get the same amount of fibre as you have from the brown. There are 3 varieties of bread on this slide: white, and this one on the right at the back is brown, and at the front wholemeal, and it's fairly easy to see which one is the best. When we look at biscuits, you've got to eat an awful lot of rich tea biscuits to get 5 grams of dietary fibre. In the middle we've got digestive biscuits, and they contain about 1 gram of dietary fibre per biscuit. Ryvita is next to that, and oat cakes. Here we've got, on the next slide, some vegetables, and again you can see that they're not particularly good sources of dietary fibre. That's an awful lot of cabbage on the left. This again is because of the high water content. One exception to the vegetables is shown in slide 17, where we've got baked potato and mashed potato, and provided you eat the skin, a baked potato is a very good source of dietary fibre.
The final slide, showing what sort of meals and snacks would meet NACNI's recommendations for a whole day, might surprise a lot of people. It looks quite a lot, in fact, but it's bulky, high in fibre, and nutritious. There's fat and sugar there, but not too much. Getting individuals to change their diet, however, is not easy. There are many factors, social, economic, and psychological, which affect people's choice of food. Here on a housing estate in South London, some of those problems have been aired at a regular discussion group organised by community dietitian Izzy Cole-Hamilton. She's been advising this group of women about a better diet and following their reactions.
Eat better diets should be cutting down on sugar and fat and salt and eating more fibre. Now, it's easy to know those things, but it's not necessarily so easy to do it. And first of all, I think in order to do it, you have to know about what you're actually eating. Have any of you actually tried to change your diet at all?
Yes, definitely changing the fact that I always buy brown rice now and wholemeal bread. Sugar I haven't taken for years anyway, but my weakness is fresh cream cakes, you see, so I avoid that bit in Sainsbury's when I walk around there.
The thing is, I think if health foods are more available to you, because they're not really very available around here, you've got a few things to pick from in the local supermarkets. Well, I think you would probably eat more healthy.
I find if I eat too much, especially food cooked in fat, I get bloated and then I feel sick. Normally can't keep it down. But I eat any foods, anything.
Have you tried sort of cutting down on fat or sugar?
I don't take sugar in any hot drink or cereals. But I go days with eating a lot of cakes and biscuits and stuff like that.
Why do you think you do that on some days, not others?
I just like it.
Feel like it. How about you, Angela? Do you change?
I eat more brown breads and brown rice, things that I wouldn't have eaten a few years ago. And I don't buy many convenience foods. I try and sort of cook them.
the children, they have to eat what's there.
And
So
they
I
like
start
it?
them off with different things, they have to eat what they're given.
And they eat it all right,
they,
no problem.
they like vegetables and they like brown bread.
Have you noticed any difference in the budget? Does it cost the same or more? Or
Well, it is a
less,
bit dearer because brown bread is dearer than white bread and brown rice is dearer. But then I cut down on other things.
Yeah.
Well, I tried giving up sugar and fat for a couple of weeks, but
It's too difficult.
yes.
Why did you find it hard?
I like sweet things.
There's been a lot of debate recently about the NACNA report and the recommendations on these foods that we're eating. How are you trying to take these points up in the work that you do in this area?
Well, most of my job is involved in going around talking with groups, such as the group we've been with here today, about food and health and changing their diets, talking about what food's available, what's in the food we eat, how it is possible to change the diets, and really taking guides from documents such as NACNA about the information that I'm giving. I think the group that we've been with here today has actually been very encouraging, hearing the women talking about some of the changes they've made. And obviously there are problems for a lot of people.
Well, I'm overeating.
I actually think that everybody is concerned about their health, and people are more and more becoming interested in their health, and especially about nutrition. And I've worked in Lambeth now for 6 years and been fully employed talking to groups of people about food and nutrition because they're interested, not because I think I ought to go out and talk to somebody about it. So people are very concerned, and changes are happening, but they're slow, and it's difficult because of the sort of food available.
Away from home, of course, it's not so easy to be sure of the diet that you're going to consume. Many people have their midday meal in the staff canteen, for instance, and in that field the trend in recent years has been ever more towards technological food, towards pre-packaged and processed foodstuffs. But it needn't be that way. Here in the Laura Ashley staff canteen, nestling in the mountains of mid-Wales, the staff still use traditional methods of cooking in the canteen. Not only that, but wherever possible they go on using fresh and not processed ingredients. What is it today, Chef?
Creepy and ham soup today.
So the industrial canteens I go to, people say we take that from packets because it saves so much bother. How much bother is it to make a thing like that?
Very little bother, actually. I would say myself that the packet soup tastes a little bit on the floury side. I used to work for caterers before coming here, outside caterers, and they used to use packet soup, but also they used to use basic as well, which made a fair soup. But if you just use the powders, which indeed they used to do on the other times, that's very good. That's good. You need a bit of a basic background on it. And it's all there. Onions, carrots.
Who peeled the sprouts, Chef?
The lady.
And that's cooking in a real old traditional iron pot.
Indeed it is. As you can see, if you try and lift it up, the way there's something out of this world.
I won't accept the challenge, thanks very much. Now the whole of modern food technology is based on the idea of convenience and on quickness. There are lots of additives, there are lots of pre-prepared, pre-packaged stuff. But how much of that kind of stuff do you use here?
None at all.
None whatever?
No. We don't even use gravy browning. We use stocks and meat flavorings, meat bottoms, and browning. That's all the caramel.
And you're catering for how many people?
Well, we do about 100 could be 120, 130 hot lunches and anywhere between 60 and 70 salads.
So staple canteen offerings like chips, burgers and processed peas are not available here. What's more, they don't appear to be missed. One academic study of staff attitudes to canteens like this showed that people were more likely to use them, and that they appreciated the food more than the traditional canteen fare. But sadly, this experiment is an isolated one. So many of our works canteens simply fulfill their original purpose of providing cheap, basic food on site to help keep industry functioning efficiently. But it was at times of crisis when more effort went to feeding people in a healthy way, as opposed to merely filling them up.
We have seen the state directs food to the mines and the factories so that the workers are fit and strong to make the weapons of war. And to the fighting forces so they are fit and strong to use the weapons of war. To the youth of the nation to ensure vigorous manpower. To the children to ensure vigorous youth. To the babies to ensure healthy children. To the mothers and mothers-to-be to ensure healthy babies. The circle is complete, and the relation between the individual and the state is clear. An individual's duty to the state is to keep healthy. The state's duty to the individual is to ensure the means to keep healthy.
During the last war, there was a very clear government food policy. Food was rationed for all according to nutritional guidelines, and some of the people involved in that policy argue that the government should have a proper food policy today.
I think we must have a national food policy. The media makes a great deal of all the disagreements between nutritionists, recommending one food, one diet, and so forth. But that is for news entertainment value. The real truth is that there is a great consensus of opinion now. So there should be, after a century of nutrition research. We know now which foods are good for people, which are the foods which promote a healthy race and productivity. We do know. And so we could have a national nutrition policy and we could promote the good foods, control their prices so that they were within people's reach. And then I think we want to revive that wonderful public relations approach that the ministry had with the journalists and the artists and the recipe writers, and promote good foods attractively to people.
No one is suggesting that rationing be revived, but it's felt that the government should pay more attention to the whole of the food chain, from agriculture to cookery, as it did during the war. It's been estimated that the health service could save £1 billion by reducing diet-related disease, so a food policy is a very important issue.
For the government to think that they should not have a food policy or a nutrition policy when they have an economic policy based on far less input of firm data material and scientific work, it is, in my view, an inappropriate view and an inappropriate view of the importance of the subject and what you can do at the moment.
Food policy or no food policy, the government remains directly involved in feeding a very large number of the population, from school children to pensioners. It is the largest caterer in the country. In hospitals alone, more than 300,000 people have free meals each day. And yet, although some individual efforts are being made to pursue the NACNI guidelines for such meals, there is no official requirement that they should. Wholemeal bread, for example, which is strongly recommended in preference to white, is the exception, not the rule. The government is also responsible for the school meal system. The 1944 Education Act stipulated that school meals should be suitable as the main meal of the day, and that they should provide 1/3 of the recommended daily nutrient requirements for each child. The composition of the children's meals was designed to ensure that they ate enough, but now there is concern that it should also be the right type of food. Recent changes in school meals, however, seem to run counter to this concern.
The 1980 Education Act abolished the legal obligation on councils to provide any form of nourishment for children at midday, except poor children whose parents are on social security. The Act also did away with nutritional standards. As a result, some councils have abolished their school meal service, but here in Manchester it's been maintained. These changes have been controversial. The school dinner has in the past provided a large part of a child's daily food, and for many where meals are still provided, it may be their first food of the day.
There's not much likelihood of many of those children coming out with a thoroughly hot meal. There's no guarantee that they're going to get a fairly balanced diet when they get home either. I think perhaps the school meal service is one of the ways of giving our children a balanced diet. Many of them may have to wait till late in the evening for a hot meal at home because a lot of their parents are on shift work. A lot of our mums, for instance, will be doing cleaning jobs in the area and maybe out when children get home.
And without nutritional standards, many schools now provide food which is considered unhealthy. A lot of children just have chips and a fizzy drink at midday. This school's menu is at least more substantial.
Cheese pie with meat, tomato sauce, peas, carrots, and roast potato.
Did you have any pudding?
No, I don't yet.
What are you going to have for your pudding?
I don't know yet.
You don't know, it's a big surprise.
It's a big surprise.
Is it usually nice, the dinner that you get here?
Yes, gorgeous.
What's your favourite?
Stew and roast potatoes. And pudding and chocolate cake with custard.
What do you have in the morning before you come to school?
Some Kellogg's, some milk and sugar over it.
And what do you get when you go home for your tea at night?
Chips, beans, eggs, and tomatoes.
And while policies have been reviewed from time to time, another aspect of the government's role on food in schools has been the provision of milk. Justified on nutritional grounds, this has benefited the dairy industry enormously.
An example of government policy is to be found in the activities of the Milk Marketing Board. By means of subsidies and the control of milk production, the consumption of milk was last year increased by 78.5 million gallons. 2 3/4 million school children received daily rations of milk at a specially reduced price of a halfpenny for 1/3 of a pint.
Milk is very popular in Britain. We drink over 40 million pints a day, mostly full-fat milk, and it's always been promoted as a health-giving food.
Everybody on the go, it's worker at play. Need to drink but go to work, and that's why you stay. Make 'em out of milk up, yes please. Everybody on the go, so please take a rest. Use the time to take the drink that works for you best. Make 'em out of milk up, yes please. Grow sturdy up, grow lovely up, stay lively up. Make 'em out of milk, yes please. Drink a pint of milk a day.
I think that milk, for most of this century, has been seen as a very important nutritious product which we ought to drink for reasons of health. Now, for years, the whole of agriculture and the whole system of government has been geared to producing a certain minimum fat content. However, we have to recognise that the fat which we get from milk is an important component, fraction, about 1/8 of our total fat intake. And as such, we should ideally be reducing the fat content in the milk.
Reducing the fat we consume in milk would be a very major change affecting a very large industry. Special processes are needed for skimmed and semi-skimmed milk, and the industry is not geared up for large-scale production. They argue that the expense involved in such a major change could affect the industry's whole structure, including the future of Britain's 30,000 milkmen. How much milk would we buy if it wasn't for the daily milk round? We British like milk for what it is, but we also like the way that we buy it through doorstep deliveries by the local milkman. It's a unique British tradition, and whenever anybody says he should be abolished, we leap to his defence. But of course nowadays you can buy milk in supermarkets and stores in all sorts of varieties and flavours. And there's a trend towards skimmed milk. Well, the council clearly has a very diverse interest in promoting milk. We've got milk in schools, we've got milk in pubs, we've got sports sponsorship, we've got doorstep deliveries. Why is skimmed milk so far down your list of priorities?
Oh, it's not.
But you don't see the same amount of promotion of skimmed milk as you do of dairy cream cakes, for instance, do you?
No, we actually promote fresh cream cakes, most certainly, but milk, we advertise all milks. We don't pick off any one particular type of milk, because there's much larger quantities of pasteurized and gold-top milk sold, and homogenized milk and sterilized, than skim milk. Skim milk is only 1 or 2% at the moment of the public's requirements. So we don't, in actual fact, differentiate between any of our milks. We just promote milk.
Does it concern you, though, that nutritionists are now saying that skim milk should be promoted more heavily?
Some nutritionists in the immediate past few weeks and months have said this, yes, but an awful lot more are saying have put out reports with contrary views. What the industry is doing at the moment, as we have always done, is to monitor the published requirement for skim milk products. We have a range of skim milk cheeses on sale now. Very shortly, when this program comes on screen, you'll see us advertising a range of milks, including skim milk. But when we have tried, historically as an industry, to promote skim milks in the past, I'm afraid we've met with disaster. A lot of dairies have made a lot of losses out of trying to promote something which the public didn't actually want.
Skimmed and semi-skimmed milk is now available from a great many of the country's milk rounds, and it's being advertised on a national scale for the first time. But this concession to current medical opinion is still outweighed by more traditional messages, and the milk industry is reluctant to take the lead in changing public taste.
We tend to pick up on public wants and public requirements and build upon them. We have, after all, to make a profit, and so that we find it generally very much better from a marketing point of view to go out to the public and ask them what they want, and then to make the product available to them.
With the food industry so cautious and the government yet to act on the NACNI report, it's difficult to see how the consumer will know what the healthiest choices are.
If only we could reduce the fat content of milk, we could still have all its advantages, all the calcium, the protein, a variety of different minerals and vitamins. And of course, milk isn't just a health food, as it were. It also performs, in a sense, a social function. We have milkmen, big economic implications of milkmen delivering milk to the doorstep every day. They have a social function in relation to the elderly. We shouldn't automatically be saying, let's get rid of milk. That would be crazy. What we should be doing is to try to bring the farmers, the producers, the milk marketing board, and the health specialists together and saying, let's promote the consumption of milk, a low-fat milk, though.
A few years ago, it would have been quite unthinkable that questions of safety would ever be raised about something like milk, which has always been thought of as such a healthy part of our daily diet. But if we are going to change the future, the way that we look at food, and if recommendations like those of the NACNI document were to be implemented, for example, then there would be radical alterations at every level of the food industry.
The point is, whose responsibility should it be to stimulate those alterations? The individuals or the governments? People like Professor Philip James believe that the government should have a proper food policy and that the food industry should be a party to it. But others, not least food industry spokesmen, believe that the main stimulus should come from individual consumers.
My view is in favour of the individual. I believe the individual can be given the information and can understand the information from which he can make his own choice. I believe in our society, with a competitive industry, the industry will respond to the individual's choice.
The British Nutrition Foundation, which is sponsored by the food industry, was a party to the NACNI report, but it's uneasy about supporting the committee's recommendations. The foundation does not believe the industry or the government should take the lead, partly because they feel the scientific evidence is not fully convincing.
It's a fairly big problem, and I believe one of our jobs in the Nutrition Foundation is to so well understand the theoretical point of view and to have such a response from industry of trust that they will accept those industries which have to change, that the facts on which this change is based are really strong facts and incontrovertible and will indeed be followed throughout the Western world. Now, at this point in time, that's not true, but we've all got to work towards that and establishing which facts are really cast iron and fireproof.
So food industry spokesmen want the consumer's interest in healthier products to force their hand, while nutritionists like Philip James are active behind the scenes lobbying for major changes in every aspect of our food chain. He believes that all parties have a role in bringing these changes about.
Yes, government does play a role, and food manufacturers play a big role, because obviously if you manipulate the types of ingredients put into food, you automatically change what people eat without them having to make any conscious decision. So I think there are two elements to that. Yes, government action and food industry action can help enormously, but individuals can do something themselves too, and we're looking for changes on both fronts.